guys, it's God's Comic Brad Stein. Quick question. Do you think saying the word fart is a sin? Seriously, there are people who say if you said that on a pulpit, you've disgraced the mantle and authority of God. So I ask you, is the word fart used in proper context sinful? And are there other words that you're not even allowed to say as a Christian? That's what we're going to ask you to comment about today, right now. And then watch me dissect it. It all started with a big fat pile of dung. Well, actually, dung wasn't the word used. It was a common scatological term used in America for years that the late Dr. Gene Scott referred to as bovine excrement, if I remember correctly. Though the term is common to Americans, including Christians, it isn't a term Christians are supposed to use, or at least we don't admit it if we do. Maybe I should backtrack a minute to help you catch up. Imagine, if you will, that you had stumbled across an idea, not just any idea, but a rather unorthodox idea, an idea that would allow you to minister to maybe the most under-ministered humans in America, men. According to Barna, on Sundays in America, only 40% of church attendees are men. Men are the least engaged of the genders. Men are isolators and islands unto themselves. For many men, the idea of spirituality and masculinity are mutually exclusive. I wanted to see what I could do in my own little pathetic way to search for a way to remedy that. Big hurdle? Yes, but at 5'6", every hurdle is big for me, even the curb. Thus, years ago, I had the pleasure of performing and ministering to men for quite a few years on the stage of Promise Keepers events. This was a great opportunity to speak on the stage of arguably the most significant and impactful men's ministry ever to have existed in America. The fact that me, a lowly, unorthodox, freaky, in-your-face, aggressive, scary Christian comedian, would have the honor to grace their platform probably says less about my gifts and more about Promise Keepers event coordinators apparently suffering from a group blow to the head. Nevertheless, it was on these stages that I first realized my heart and desire to help, support, heal, and encourage men in their spiritual walk. Not because I had reached some spiritual high ground, but exactly for the fact that I was a layman who knew no more or was necessarily that much further along spiritually than any other guy there. This very fact is probably what encouraged men to like me in the first place. I was just like them. Most of the speakers at Promise Keepers were doctors and pastors and huge selling authors. Backstage, I would watch these men pray and study their Bible and see people healed as their shadow passed over others. I, on the other hand, would pass people and wonder how long they would have to wait for me to leave the area in order to let out the laugh they were undoubtedly holding in, wondering what on earth an idiot like me was doing amongst these giants. Again, at 5'6", everybody is a giant to me. First time I ever saw a Promise Keepers event, I was speaking there. I remember being backstage and preparing to do my show because that's what it always was to me, a show. Only this time, as I readied myself, I remember looking out amongst the crowd of men and thought, out there is a man whose wife just left him. There's a guy out there who's in the middle of an affair. Another guy's an alcoholic. Another is gay. Some guy may even be here tonight giving this God thing one more try before killing himself. I need to go out there and encourage these dudes. I need to let them know that we are all in the same boat. And we are here together waiting to see what God has in mind for us simply because we made the decision to show up this weekend. It was at that moment that I decided I was going to do more than just do some comedy that night. No. Instead, I was going to go out there and speak to these men in a manner as real and authentic as I could muster. I wasn't going to play theologian on them because I'm not one. Not going to speak in churchy language because that isn't the way I speak anyway. No, I was going to spend 20 minutes being funny, energetic, unorthodox, and above all, real. So I entered the stage, and from the first words out of my mouth said something like, "This is men's night out, guys. This is our own place to hang out and be together as men. You can laugh, you can dance, you can cry, you can fart, because it's men's night out." Apparently, these good church-going men were not used to being given permission to fart while worshiping, and they let out a roar of laughter that to me signified that they were eager and willing to take a ride with me together as real men in real lives with real problems that need real solutions, but that we can do it together by whatever means necessary outside of full-fledged heresy. Of course, I guarantee you that some of them were considered the fart word to be heretical, but then again, that was the very spirit I believed God wanted me to challenge. That legalistic worldview formula that has trained some that saying the word fart is a sin. Now, also keep in mind that Promise Keepers had never used a comedian before, thus they were taking a risk that I had something for these men they could use. I continued with my comedy and encouragement, and when my set was over, I received a standing ovation that told me that whatever I thought God was asking me to deliver, it worked. I remember walking off stage, and at the bottom of the stairs was the producer of the show, and he was staring at me with his mouth agape. He sort of stopped me and said these words, "What have you done to these guys?" Now, as a comic, I assumed that a standing ovation was a good indication that I had done my job well, but as an insecure Christian man who didn't consider himself worthy to be on the same stage as some of the ministers that followed me, as well as thinking I wasn't sure I had anything valuable to offer to these guys, I immediately remember being concerned that I had done something wrong. I consider a platform designed for the sole purpose of delivering God's message to be sacred. Last thing I wanted to do was defame or trivialize it in any way. The enemy of my soul was right there condemning me to give up ever thinking I was good enough to be of unique value to God. But you know what I discovered? God has used every type of individual from all walks of life to get his message heard. And as diverse as these men have been, if there was one thing every person God Almighty had in common when it came to being mightily used by God, it was this. Every single one of them was absolutely convinced that they were the wrong man for the job. Over the years, I continued to be Promise Keeper's exclusive comedian and saw God do amazing things in men's lives through those years, but I also learned some other life lessons I'm passing on. If God called you to something, you might as well get to it because there's no way out. Second, remember that all things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. Some believers might just have a completely unique, unorthodox, and perhaps, in your opinion, dangerous or inappropriate way of ministering. If you're unsure of their heart, have the maturity and respect to inquire of them and assume the best until shown otherwise. The Bible makes it clear God judges the heart, something none of us can see in another human, so be very careful before you judge. As a matter of fact, here's a simple habit. Ask yourself this simple question. Is the style of the ministry you're so concerned about bearing fruit? Is it healing and bringing hope and mercy and love and forgiveness? Is it uncompromising in teaching traditional Christian theology? But is it also bringing a cup of water first? If so, you might want to back off. There are plenty of legalistic, self-righteous jerks to go around. Do us all a favor. Don't be one of them. This is God's Coming, Brad Stein. And PC free. And God is liberty. Hey, you are my awakened warriors. If you're watching this, it means that you were one of the beginnings of the Awakened 1000. That is the people that are actually being part of seeing the big picture of what I'm doing. You know, it's not just Brad Stein Has Issues. It's not just my Brad Stein Show podcast. It's not just my live events at comedy clubs and churches. I'm trying to say that conservatives and Christians will not be silenced. And we have to take a back door to get in because, as you know, they do kind of silence us all over social media. But I'm not going to give up the fight. I think the God I believe in has sent me on a mission, and he sent you to go along and help me. There's a lot of free content out there, by the way. Would you do me a favor? Share it and try to drive people this direction. As long as you're here every month, I'll continue to try to make you laugh, inspire you, and also defend what you hold sacred. That's what I'm here for. You can help me. Also, when you see me in your town, or you want me in your town, let me know. I'll come out there, and we will do some damage for the kingdom. Thank you for being the beginnings of this ministry that has just begun to fight. I appreciate it, guys.